Clara lived in a quiet town where life seemed to move slowly. She had always been careful with her money, saving a little bit from every paycheck. She worked long hours at the local store, often staying late to help customers or restock shelves. Life had been hard sometimes, but Clara believed in doing her best and keeping a positive heart. She had been saving for months, putting aside money whenever she could. The plan was simple. She wanted to pay off a debt that had been worrying her for a long time. This debt weighed on her mind every day, and she often dreamed about the day she could finally be free from it. That morning, she woke up early, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Today she was going to deposit the money she had saved and finally see her burden lifted. She made herself a cup of coffee and walked to the store where she worked, her mind full of thoughts about the future and the sense of relief that awaited her. As Clara walked down the busy street, she noticed the usual sights: cars rushing by, people walking with their heads down, a few children running to catch the bus. But then something unusual caught her eye. On the corner of the street, sitting on the cold concrete, was a man. He looked tired and worn out, his clothes old and frayed. He wore a jacket that looked like it had seen better days and held a small faded sign. Clara's heart skipped a beat as she read the words. "Homeless veteran, anything helps." She stopped for a moment, studying the man's face. His eyes seemed tired but had a kind expression. There was something about him that made Clara feel a pull in her chest, a need to do something. Clara hesitated for a moment. She had her own plans and her own worries. She was supposed to be depositing her savings today, but looking at the man sitting there, shivering slightly in the cold, she felt a sense of urgency. She remembered stories she had heard about veterans who had served their country and then struggled to find their place when they returned home. She thought about how brave they were and how much they had given. Clara had never been in the military, but she understood respect and gratitude. She understood what it meant to care for someone who had sacrificed so much. Clara reached into her bag and checked her wallet. She counted the money she had. Her heart pounded as she realized she had exactly $1,000 left. This was the money she had been saving for months. It was the money that would help her finally pay off her debt. But as she looked back at the man, something inside her shifted. She thought about what it must feel like to be out on the street with nowhere to go, feeling invisible to the world. She thought about the cold nights, the hunger, and the fear. Clara took a deep breath. She decided then and there that she would help him. She knelt down on the sidewalk, her hands shaking slightly as she reached into her wallet. She pulled out the stack of bills and handed them to the man. He looked up at her, his eyes wide with surprise and something that looked like disbelief. He tried to speak, but his voice caught in his throat. Clara smiled gently at him and said, "I hope this helps. Please take care of yourself." The man's hands trembled as he accepted the money. Tears filled his eyes and he whispered a shaky, "Thank you," that barely reached her ears. Clara felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she had never experienced before. It was as if in that small moment she had done something truly meaningful. After giving him the money, Clara stood up slowly, feeling a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. She had given away her entire savings, the $1,000 she had worked so hard to save. A part of her worried about how she would pay her debt now, how she would manage the coming weeks without that safety net. But another part of her felt lighter than she had in a long time. She felt a sense of peace knowing she had helped someone in need. As she walked away, she glanced back at the man. He was still sitting there holding the money, his head bowed. She could see him wiping his eyes with the sleeve of his jacket, trying to hold back tears. Clara felt a lump in her throat. She didn't know his story, but she knew she had made a difference. Clara continued walking down the street, her mind buzzing with thoughts. She thought about how small gestures could have a big impact, how a single act of kindness could change someone's day, maybe even their life. She replayed the moment over and over in her mind, wondering if she had done the right thing, if it would really help him. She felt a strange mix of fear and hope, not knowing what the future held for either of them. As she reached the grocery store, she bought a few items for herself, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept thinking about the man on the street corner, wondering where he had come from, what had brought him to this point, and what his life had been like before. Clara felt connected to him in a way she could not explain. It was as if, for a brief moment, their lives had intersected in a meaningful way. Hours passed and Clara returned home, still thinking about the man she had helped. She told herself that she had done what was right, even if it had meant giving up something important to her. She felt proud but also nervous about the coming days. How would she manage without the money she had saved? What would happen to her debt? But despite these worries, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had been part of something bigger, something meaningful. That night as she lay in bed, she couldn't sleep. She thought about how fragile life could be, how quickly circumstances could change, and how important it was to help others whenever possible. Clara realized that even though she had given away her last $1,000, she had gained something much more valuable, the knowledge that she had made a real difference in someone's life. The next morning, Clara woke up early again, still thinking about the man. She wondered if he had been able to get something to eat, if he had found shelter from the cold. She decided to take a walk before work, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. As she reached the corner where she had met him, she noticed that he was no longer there. Her heart sank for a moment, worried that he might be struggling even more without her help. But then she noticed a few people nearby, looking concerned and talking to someone who appeared to be an authority. Clara couldn't see clearly from a distance, but her curiosity was piqued. She walked closer, trying to understand what was happening. Her mind raced with questions. Where had he gone? Who were these people? What had happened in the 30 minutes since she had left? Clara felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. She had given all she had to someone she barely knew, yet she felt deeply connected to him. It was strange how life could bring people together in unexpected ways, how a simple act could create ripples that no one could predict. She knew that what she had done was just the beginning of a story she could not yet understand. Clara took a deep breath and stepped closer, ready to see what would happen next. She felt a sense of curiosity and hope, wondering if her small gesture would continue to make a difference. As she approached, she realized that life had a way of rewarding kindness in ways she could never have imagined, and she felt a growing sense of anticipation for what was about to unfold. Clara couldn't stop thinking about the man she had helped as she went about her day. The memory of his eyes, filled with gratitude and surprise, kept coming back to her. She felt a mixture of pride and worry. Pride because she had acted from the heart, but worry because she had given away the last money she had saved. It was still morning when she decided to run a few errands before heading to work. The streets were busier now, with people moving quickly, some chatting on phones, some rushing to their destinations. Clara was lost in thought when she heard a commotion ahead. A black SUV had pulled up abruptly near the corner, and several men in suits were moving quickly. Officers in uniform followed behind, their faces serious and focused. Curious, Clara slowed her pace and stepped closer to see what was happening. Her heart began to race as she realized that the man she had just helped was now surrounded by these people. He was standing, looking a little disoriented, as if he had just been startled from sleep. One of the men, wearing a uniform with stars on his shoulders, was speaking urgently to him. Clara's breath caught in her throat. Could it really be? Was that an army general? She had seen plenty of news stories about high-ranking officers, but she never imagined she would see one in her small town, let alone in such a situation. Clara stood frozen for a moment, unsure if she should approach. Then, without thinking, she began to walk closer. Her curiosity and concern were stronger than her hesitation. As she drew nearer, the general's gaze met hers. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. There was recognition in his eyes, as if he understood the connection between her and the man. Clara didn't know what to say or do. She simply stood there, watching, while the general spoke in a calm but commanding voice. The man she had helped nodded, his expression a mix of relief and confusion. Clara could see that something important was unfolding, something far bigger than she had imagined. Her mind raced. What had happened in the 30 minutes since she left? How had things escalated so quickly? She felt a sense of awe and anticipation, knowing she was witnessing something extraordinary. The general stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on the man's shoulder. His voice was steady, filled with authority and care. Clara could hear fragments of their conversation, enough to understand that the man had been missing for some time, and that authorities had been searching for him. The officer explained that he had served his country in dangerous missions and had faced difficulties adjusting to civilian life after returning home. Clara's heart ached as she realized the depth of what he had been through. She had seen him as a homeless man struggling on the streets, But now she understood that his story was far more complex and tragic than she could have imagined. Clara noticed that the man's eyes kept glancing at her. There was a spark of recognition, a silent acknowledgement that she had helped him when he needed it most. Her chest tightened as she realized that her small act of kindness had played a role in this larger, life-changing moment. She had given him money, yes, but more than that. She had given him hope and a sense that someone cared. And now, in the midst of this unexpected scene, she saw how far-reaching her gesture had been. The general seemed impressed, nodding at her in a way that communicated gratitude and respect. Clara felt both humbled and overwhelmed by the attention. The crowd around them was beginning to gather. Curious pedestrians paused, whispering to each other and pointing at the scene. Clara could hear snippets of their conversation, questions about the officer, murmurs of surprise, speculation about the man's identity. She realized that this moment would be remembered not just by those directly involved, but by everyone who witnessed it. Clara felt a deep sense of responsibility. She had acted without expecting anything in return, and now she was part of a story that would touch many lives. The general spoke again, his voice firm but compassionate. He explained to the man that he was safe now, that people had been looking for him, and that help was on the way. The man's hands trembled slightly as he listened, and Clara could see tears forming in his eyes. She felt a lump in her throat, knowing that she had been there at the right time, in the right place. She remembered the exact moment she had handed him the money, and now she realized that small act had led to this powerful outcome. It was a reminder that even the simplest gestures could have profound consequences. Clara's mind wandered back to her own life. She thought about the money she had given away, about her plans and her worries. For a moment, she questioned whether she had made the right choice. But as she watched the man being reassured and supported, she knew deep down that she had done the right thing. Money could be earned again, but the chance to help someone in their most desperate moment was priceless. Clara felt a surge of warmth and satisfaction. She had been part of something bigger than herself, something that went beyond personal struggles and financial concerns. The general finally turned his attention to Clara. He approached her, his steps confident and measured. Clara felt her heart race. She didn't know what he would say or why he was approaching her. As he came closer, he extended his hand in a firm handshake. His eyes were filled with a mix of respect and gratitude. Clara felt her breath catch. The general spoke, thanking her for her kindness, explaining that her actions had helped authorities locate the man and ensured his safety. Clara listened, feeling a combination of pride, disbelief, and humility. She had never imagined that her simple act of giving money would lead to recognition from a high-ranking officer, nor that it would play a part in saving a man from further hardship. The man, who Clara now learned was named David, stood nearby, still holding onto the general's arm. His eyes met hers again, and he mouthed a quiet, heartfelt thank you. Clara's heart swelled. She had never expected to see him again, and yet here he was, safe and on the path to recovery, looking at her with gratitude that words could not fully express. Clara realized that this moment would stay with her forever, a reminder that even small acts of compassion could create ripples that extended far beyond what anyone could imagine. The general began to coordinate with officers and social workers to ensure that David received the care and support he needed. Clara watched as plans were made for temporary housing, medical attention, and counseling services. She felt a deep sense of relief, knowing that he would no longer have to face the streets alone. The people around them continued to watch, murmuring in amazement at the unfolding scene. Clara felt a mixture of awe and humility, understanding that she had witnessed something extraordinary and had contributed to it in her own small way. As the crowd began to disperse, the general turned to Clara once more, offering a nod of appreciation. Clara smiled, feeling a mixture of joy and wonder. She had acted from the heart, not seeking recognition or reward, and yet she had been part of a moment that would change lives. She realized that kindness, when given freely and sincerely, had the power to create outcomes far greater than anyone could anticipate. Clara walked away slowly, her heart light and her spirit lifted. She knew that this day would stay with her forever, a reminder that even ordinary people could make extraordinary differences. She thought about how life often unfolded in unexpected ways and how being present, paying attention and acting with compassion could lead to moments of profound significance. Clara could hardly believe what she was seeing as she watched the scene unfold. The man she had helped, David, was now surrounded by people who seemed intent on helping him get back on his feet. Officers and social workers moved around quickly, talking into radios and making plans. Clara realized that David's situation was far more serious than she had imagined. He wasn't just a man down on his luck. He was a veteran who had faced unimaginable challenges. The general standing nearby gave clear instructions, ensuring that every detail was covered so David would receive immediate assistance. Clara felt a deep sense of awe and curiosity. She had acted from kindness, never imagining that it would lead to something so significant. Her heart swelled as she watched the care and attention being given to someone who had been invisible to the world for so long. The general spoke to David in a calm and authoritative voice, explaining that help was on the way and that he was no longer alone. Clara could see the tension in David's shoulders slowly ease, replaced by a mixture of relief and disbelief. For months he had wandered the streets, surviving as best he could, facing cold nights and hungry days. Now he was being treated with respect, dignity, and care. Clara realized that her small act of giving money had done more than just provide immediate help. It had created a connection that brought people together to ensure David's safety. Her heart felt full, knowing that something she had done had such far-reaching effects. Clara stood a little apart, observing quietly. The general noticed her and motioned for her to come closer. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should interrupt, but then she stepped forward. The general spoke directly to her, explaining that her gesture had helped authorities locate David quickly. He told her that the timing was crucial, and that her actions had played a key role in ensuring David's safety. Clara felt a mix of pride and humility. She had acted without expectation, and now she was being recognized in a way that made her feel both honored and a little overwhelmed. She shook her head gently, telling the general that she had only done what felt right at the moment. He smiled, acknowledging her humility while expressing his gratitude. David, still holding the money she had given him, looked at Clara with a mixture of emotions. There was gratitude, yes, but also something deeper: hope, trust, and a sense of connection. Clara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She had met David for a brief moment, yet their lives had intersected in a way that would never be forgotten. The general began to explain to Clara how complex the situation had been. David had served his country in dangerous missions, facing circumstances that few could imagine. Upon returning home, he had struggled with injuries, both physical and mental, and had been unable to adjust to civilian life. His story was one of bravery and sacrifice, but also of hardship and struggle. Clara listened, feeling a profound respect and admiration for what he had endured. The general then outlined the next steps. David would be taken to a safe place where he could receive medical attention, counseling, and housing. Social workers were ready to support him, helping him rebuild his life step by step. Clara watched as David nodded, still processing the sudden shift in his circumstances. She could see the relief on his face, the first genuine smile he had shown in a long time. Clara realized that the chain reaction her kindness had set off was more powerful than she had ever imagined. Her $1,000 had been more than money. It had been a catalyst for change, a bridge that connected a man in need with the resources and support he desperately required. As the officers and social workers began to guide David toward a waiting vehicle, Clara felt a sense of satisfaction mixed with sadness. She knew that this moment would mark the beginning of a new chapter for him, but she also understood that the journey ahead would be long and challenging. Clara reflected on her own life and how small decisions could ripple outward in unexpected ways. She realized that kindness, when given freely, could touch lives far beyond what anyone could see. Her heart felt light and full at the same time, filled with hope that David would find peace and stability. The general turned to Clara once more, taking a moment to acknowledge her role. He spoke of the courage it took to act with compassion, to step forward and help someone in need without hesitation. Clara felt a deep sense of humility. She had never thought of herself as brave. She had simply followed her instincts. Yet here she was, being recognized for the impact of a simple act. She realized that bravery was not always about grand gestures or heroic feats. Sometimes it was about showing up, caring, and making a difference when it mattered most. Clara and the general watched as David was escorted safely into the vehicle. She could see the hope in his eyes, the beginnings of trust and confidence returning. The general explained that David would be placed in a program designed to support veterans facing similar challenges. He would receive medical care, counseling for trauma, and guidance to reintegrate into society. Clara felt a sense of relief and joy. Her act of kindness had created a ripple effect that reached far beyond what she could have imagined, touching not just David's life but the lives of everyone involved in helping him. As the vehicle drove away, Clara stood there for a moment, taking in the scene. She thought about how ordinary people could create extraordinary change through compassion and action. She remembered the fear she had felt when giving away her last $1,000, worried about her own financial security, and realized that the reward she had received was far greater than money. It was the knowledge that she had made a real difference, that her actions had helped save someone from despair and guided him toward hope and stability. Clara walked slowly back down the street, reflecting on what had happened. She thought about the importance of paying attention, of noticing those in need, and of taking action even when it felt risky or inconvenient. She realized that life often presented opportunities to make a positive impact, and that it was up to each person to decide how to respond. Clara felt grateful for the chance to help, and she knew that this experience would stay with her forever, shaping how she saw the world and her place in it. That evening, Clara returned home, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and fulfillment. She thought about David, wondering how he would feel as he settled into a safe space for the first time in months. She imagined him resting comfortably, finally able to sleep without fear, finally able to begin the process of healing. Clara smiled to herself, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. She had acted from the heart, and the outcome had exceeded her expectations in ways she could never have predicted. As she prepared for bed, Clara reflected on the lessons she had learned. She understood that true compassion required courage, empathy, and action. She realized that even small gestures could have far-reaching consequences, creating ripples that touched lives in unexpected and meaningful ways. Clara knew that the world was full of challenges and struggles, but she also knew that moments of kindness and connection could make all the difference. She felt a renewed sense of purpose, inspired to continue living a life guided by empathy and compassion. Before falling asleep, Clara thought once more about David and the impact of her actions. She felt grateful for the opportunity to be part of his story, to have played a role in helping him find safety, hope, and support. She knew that life would continue to present opportunities to make a difference, and she felt ready to embrace them. Clara drifted off to sleep with a sense of peace, knowing that a single act of kindness had created a chain of events that would change a life forever. Her heart was full, her spirit lifted, and she felt a deep connection to the world around her, understanding that even ordinary people could create extraordinary change when they acted with compassion and courage. Clara woke the next morning with a lingering sense of awe from the previous day. She kept thinking about David, the homeless veteran she had helped, and the remarkable chain of events that had unfolded in just a few short hours. The world felt different somehow, as if the ordinary rhythm of her small town had been disrupted by something extraordinary. Clara had never expected her simple act of kindness to have such a profound effect, and yet she knew deep in her heart that it was a reminder of how powerful compassion could be. She made herself a cup of coffee, sitting by the window and watching the street below. The sun was rising, casting warm light on the sidewalks and rooftops, and she felt a small sense of hope and renewal, as if the day itself were urging her to believe in the goodness of people. Clara decided to take a walk to the corner where she had first met David. She wanted to see the place where her actions had started a ripple that had changed a life. As she approached, she noticed that the area looked calmer than the day before. There were no crowds, no commotion, just the quiet hum of morning activity. Clara paused, imagining David standing there looking lost and unsure, holding a sign that most people had ignored. She thought about how invisible he must have felt, and how one small gesture, her giving him money, had become a turning point. Her chest tightened with emotion, and she felt a strong connection to him, even though their encounter had been brief. Later that morning, Clara received a call from a local support organization connected to veterans. They had gotten her number from the general and wanted to thank her personally. Clara was taken aback. She had expected nothing in return, and yet people were reaching out, expressing gratitude for what she had done. The voice on the phone explained that David was being placed in a safe space, receiving medical care, counseling, and other support services. The organization said that her timely help had been crucial in locating him quickly and ensuring that he did not face further danger or hardship. Clara listened, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and humility. She realized that her actions had consequences she could never have predicted, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment knowing that she had played a role in turning David's life around. By midday, Clara decided to visit David in his new temporary home. She wanted to see him, to witness firsthand the impact of her help. As she arrived, she was greeted by a social worker who guided her to a quiet room where David was sitting. His face lit up when he saw her, and Clara could see the gratitude shining in his eyes. He thanked her over and over, his voice filled with emotion. Clara felt a lump in her throat. She had never expected such a response. David explained how hopeless he had felt on the streets, how long he had wandered without direction or purpose, and how her generosity had given him a glimmer of hope. Clara listened, her heart swelling with compassion. She realized that her simple act had given him more than money. It had given him a sense of being seen, a reminder that someone cared. Over the next few hours, Clara and David talked about his life before and after his time in the military. He shared stories of his experiences, the challenges he faced during missions, and the struggles he encountered when he returned home. Clara listened intently, offering words of encouragement and support. She learned that his journey had been filled with bravery and sacrifice, but also with loneliness and despair. The social worker joined them periodically, ensuring that David was comfortable and that the conversation remained supportive. Clara noticed that as they talked, David's posture relaxed, his eyes grew brighter, and the tension in his shoulders eased. It was as if her presence, combined with the help he was receiving, was allowing him to reclaim a sense of dignity and confidence. As the day progressed, Clara reflected on the ripple effect of her actions. She realized that her small gesture had set in motion a series of events that involved the general, the support organization, and the social workers, all working together to ensure David's safety and well-being. She thought about how kindness could create unexpected opportunities and connections. Clara felt a deep sense of purpose, understanding that even ordinary people could make extraordinary differences in the lives of others. Her heart was full, and she felt a renewed sense of responsibility to continue acting with compassion whenever she could. Clara spent time helping David with small tasks, showing him that he was not alone. They went for a short walk around the neighborhood, enjoying the fresh air and sunlight. Clara noticed how much more confident he appeared, how he smiled more freely, and how he began to share stories about his hopes for the future. They talked about practical plans such as finding stable housing, continuing medical treatment, and exploring work opportunities. Clara could see the spark of determination returning to David, a determination that had been buried under months of struggle and hardship. She felt a sense of fulfillment knowing that her support, even in a small way, was helping him rebuild his life. Later, Clara received a call from the general himself. He wanted to personally thank her for her actions and explain how her timing had been crucial. Clara listened carefully as he described the efforts taken to locate David, how her presence and generosity had provided vital information, and how her courage had inspired those involved to act quickly. The general's words filled Clara with awe and humility. She realized that her simple choice to give her last $1,000 had contributed to something far greater than she could have imagined. She understood that acts of kindness often went beyond immediate results, creating opportunities for transformation and hope. As evening approached, Clara stayed with David for a while longer, helping him settle in and encouraging him to rest. She reflected on how fragile life could be and how important it was to act with compassion. She thought about the people in her own life and the challenges they faced, realizing that everyone had moments of struggle that could be eased by simple acts of generosity and empathy. Clara felt a renewed sense of connection to her community, understanding that even small actions could create lasting change. Before leaving, Clara and David shared a quiet moment together. They spoke about the future, about the steps he would take to rebuild his life, and about the support systems now in place to help him. Clara encouraged him to stay hopeful, to embrace the opportunities that had been presented, and to believe in his own strength. David thanked her again, his voice filled with sincerity and warmth. Clara felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that her actions had helped restore not only his physical safety, but also his emotional well-being. Walking home that evening, Clara reflected on the day's events. She felt grateful for the chance to witness transformation, to be part of a story of hope and resilience. She understood that life was full of unexpected challenges and opportunities, and that the choices one made could ripple outward in ways never imagined. Clara felt inspired to continue living with compassion, knowing that even small gestures could lead to profound changes. She thought about David, the general, the social workers, and everyone involved, and felt a deep sense of connection and purpose. As she settled in for the night, Clara knew that this experience would stay with her forever, shaping how she approached life and how she sought to make a difference in the lives of others.